From Fruit Loops to Cheetos, Skittles, Pop-Tarts, and so much more, artificial food dyes are everywhere here in the U.S. But could these additives be putting our health at risk? West Virginia has now become the first state in the nation to ban virtually all artificial dyes from food sold statewide, with at least 20 other states now considering similar restrictions. With these changes comes a new documentary taking a deep dive into the debates surrounding food coloring.
We see it time and time again from all the studies. Artificial food dyes have a very negative effect on children's behavior.
There's enough science now to show that these shouldn't be in any products ingested by humans at all.
The film is called To Die For, and it takes a closer look at the food industry, questioning why some dyes are banned in Europe but still used here in the U.S. The directors of that documentary, Brandon and Whitney Cawood, are joining us live tonight. Welcome both. I appreciate you making the time, and I understand that this journey started for you 2 or 3 years ago. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so between the ages of 1 and 3, our son Atreyu was really struggling with aggression and impulse control. And in the end, it was removing synthetic dyes that really made the difference for him, something that doctors and therapy visits couldn't do. So we were really shocked because he was really only regularly consuming dyes from his allergy medicine or the occasional treat. And so we felt like we had a golden ticket, and we really felt like this information needed to be out there, that it could be a possibility that synthetic dyes are or can be wreaking havoc on some children. And so we decided to dig into the research, and we were really surprised that there was so much data supporting it.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I mean, for those people out there that are saying, I'm not regularly feeding my child something like this, that you're literally talking about a tablet. You're talking about a daily medication, potentially making all the difference here. Brandon, what did the documentary find these artificial dyes are doing to our health?
So most of the studies are looking at the behavioral reactions in children: hyperactivity, aggression, sleeplessness, things like that. And so as we traveled across America and even to Europe, we talked to researchers and scientists, and we found that there is a plethora of data out there, especially most recently in 2021, the WIHA report that came out. It concluded, it was a meta-analysis of all the human research and the animal research and the mechanistic research, and it was a multi-year-long study that that took all this information into account. It was peer-reviewed. It had, they had public input, and it culminated into this document that stated, synthetic dyes can cause or exacerbate neurobehavioral problems in some children.
Is it only children we're talking about, Whitney, or do these artificial dyes have any impact on adults?
Yeah, so we talk about children so much really because the research has only covered children. The reality is there are certain dyes like Red 3. We know Red 3 causes cancer in animals, and of course that can affect anyone. But we just anecdotally have heard from a plethora of people that it's affecting them even in adulthood, affecting their sleep and their irritability. And so I kind of feel like many of these symptoms may grow up with us, but the reality is we don't have a lot of data to support that. However, I can say that we have a group on Facebook with almost 900,000 people, and we've heard these stories over and over and over, just affirming the effects it has on children and adults.
Yeah, Whitney, we'll stay with you here. These artificial dyes have been banned or restricted in regions like the European Union or Australia or Japan. What is going on here in the United States? Why isn't it the same scenario here?
I think the reality is that once we have chemicals in our food system, it's really hard to get them out. In the EU, Dr. Jim Stevenson, he is a researcher that we actually interviewed in our documentary. In response to his research, which concluded all of the things that we spoke about before, that it can have issues with so many children, and he took these children from the general population. And so the EU, what they did is they decided to put a warning label. And what manufacturers did in the EU is, in response to that warning label, they pulled the synthetic dyes out. And here in the US, the reality is we're not doing that because it is more difficult. And it seems like we are almost having the burden of proof to prove that these dyes are harmful. And the reality is they really need to prove that they're safe. And we actually have data, 27 clinical trials that are looking at the effects and that are showing harm. So we really have more than enough evidence to show that it's harmful.
Yeah, Brandon, food industry groups have come out against bans on dyes, no surprise. They claim that, the moves ignore the FDA, which has done its own research into the additives, and in many cases not finding them harmful at these levels. What is your response?
Well, the research and things that the FDA is responding to are most of those studies are 35 to 70 years old, and those studies were not capable at detecting the behavioral issues that we now know. And we know how industry is. They're going to push things as far back as they can. We've testified in multiple states on a lot of these bills that are going on, and we hear people from the same associations. Basically, it's a written script. It's the same, and what we're doing and what we're trying to do and what we are doing is we're starting to poke holes in their argument. And as you can see, states like Virginia, West Virginia, Utah now have passed bills. Their governors have signed these bills into law.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, we mentioned the ban in West Virginia, the first of its kind, and I understand that this documentary actually played a pivotal role in what we saw in that state and potentially in 20 more. Whitney, I want to ask, with this movement seeming to gain momentum right now, do you have a message to RFK Jr. on this?
Yeah, well, we are just so happy. Historically, the first state to pass dye regulation was California. So we are so happy now to see that this is becoming a bipartisan issue. RFK has really brought light to this issue. And what we've seen in many of the states that have already passed dye regulation is that this is a bipartisan issue, that both Republicans and Democrats are getting behind this. We all care about our children. And so we just really appreciate that he's shining a light on this and helping parents to know that this could be an issue for their children.
Yeah, really appreciate the work that both of you have done, and how incredible that it started with just your son and this very personal mission and is touching so many people. Directors Brandon and Whitney Cawood, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
And we do want to share with our viewers, you can watch the documentary for yourself. To Die For, thedocumentary.com lists all the ways you can watch. Have a great night. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.